This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and welcome to your live safari in the African bush. We will shortly show you our weather for all the different properties. I'm Deirdre from Tswalu, and on camera with me is Morgan. Again from Tswalu. So we're heading out this afternoon. We're going to be asking you to all join us asking questions at #WildEarth and put @FC in front of the question. And then we do have a few little glitches in our other properties. We are trying to get them online. So you're with myself and Morgan for the moment. And yeah, we're out on our drive in the Kalahari and we can see what we can find. So our tropical cyclone across South Africa has been causing lots of chaos at the moment with all the different feeds. When technology gets wet, it gets temperamental. So we'll just, maybe we can show a nice view. You can also register on the website, Kids Questions at Wild Earth TV, and then you can also engage with us on our live safari. So let's see if there's anyone home in this sociable weaver's nest. This is quite a large nest in the Kalahari. It's lots of little birds that live together in one colony. They're called sociable weavers. And there's a couple of hundred. That nest at the moment does not look active. I'm not hearing any birds at the nest at this stage. But a nice warm place come winter. And sometimes when those nests have been abandoned by the sociable weavers, you'll have other birds that use the little nest cavities to keep themselves nice and warm. And we'll even have, this particular one we know has got a hole in at the one side, and we've even found an African wildcat snoozing in the hole on the inside. Sometimes birds like owls or eagles will either nest on the top or also if there's a larger cavity in the nest. But this one, the birds seem to have left the building. So we'll see if sometime during today's show we can get you some of those birds live while they're flying in and out of the nest. They do tend to make quite a racket. They're busy. They're very, very busy birds. They're going always to go and fetch material, so constantly they go out feeding mostly as adults on the grass seeds, and then they'll bring bits of seed back into the nest and continually carry on building the nest pretty much all year round. So it's always ready once we've had good rains for them to be able to breed. I just saw a mongoose zip across the road. It was a little yellow mongoose and the birds were chasing it, but it's going to disappear in that long grass. the poor mongoose don't have such an easy life here. As soon as they're scuttling around, going from tree to tree, all the birds that are in the neighborhood come shout at it, and the poor mongoose can never sort of have a day in peace. He just gets shouted right out of that territory and then straight into the next territory of other birds, and they just keep going from there. Oh, there's a little, no, I think he'll be gone now. So we are seeing quite a lot of ground agamas. Asking the question, are mongoose and meerkat in the same family? Yes, they are. They're pretty much relatives. You could effectively call a meerkat a mongoose. It's just that they've called them meerkats right from the very beginning. And the meerkats probably spend a lot more time standing up on their back legs, propped up on their tail, more than mongooses, but they are in the same family of small little carnivores. Herpestidae, I think, is the family name for the mongooses and the meerkats. And they eat pretty much the same thing, being little carnivores, so it'll be lizards, mongoose, yellow mongoose, as well as even dwarf mongoose sometimes can grab snakes. They tend to mob a snake, so a yellow mongoose, there was one that dashed across the road, but we get the yellow mongoose here, and if it has an altercation with a Cape cobra, they can harass the cobra often enough, even though the cobra is standing and maybe striking out at the meerkat. It'll be, the mongoose, it'll be fast enough to sort of recoil from that snake strike, and it doesn't take a little bird that nearly got squashed there. He ran out in front of the car. It doesn't take much to make a snake tired, because snakes actually only have one lung. The other one is a rudimentary lung. So if they harass a snake for anything sort of 15 minutes to half an hour, if they harass it long enough, eventually the snake gets so exhausted, it's actually then easier to bite with their sharp teeth and dispatch it, and then have a meal from that. So meerkats and snakes tend to just have, they just want to chase them away. So I think Sussex is saying bumbling through Tswalu is always an adventure. Yeah. So myself and Morgan agree. Every time we've bumbled, we seem to find something. Either something runs across the road or we see a surprise. We always seem to have a wildebeest at some point when we just bumbling around. But the scenery is forever changing, which is really awesome. As soon as you go into the dunes or you change direction a little bit. And there we have a Gemsbok straight down the road. So he's just crossed the road in front of us. We'll stop next to him and show him to you a little bit closer. But I always just approach a little bit slower, because if you rush in there, then he tends to rush off, which also doesn't help putting him on camera. So we just slow down a little bit. Hopefully he didn't just disappear completely. Keep going, Morgan. Morgan can see him, I can't. Morgan's a little bit higher than me because he sits almost on the top at the back of the vehicle. And then, oh, there he is. And about there he goes. But maybe if let me go forward, he's going to cut out to the gap. So he stops for a second to look at us, and no, there he runs away. Maybe the next gap. No, now we're pretty much just seeing two little horns walking through the trees there. So, oh, that was a Gemsbok, but we'll carry on. Luckily, Tswalu's got a couple of thousand of those, so we should be able to find another one. So we're just so fortunate that we out this afternoon, there is still a very big set of clouds and thunder and lightning in our eastern horizon, but it seems like the wind has pushed it off of Tswalu, so we're heading into blue sky, which is a good thing for us this afternoon. I can see if we can find him. There's a little a red-crested korhaan calling it clip, 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 but a little bit louder than that, somewhere there on the right. It's quite challenging when the bush is much thicker, and he chooses to sometimes they hide in the thickets. No, I'm not seeing him. So he's sort of a ground bird. He's probably about that big, brown, and then a little red crest on the top. And if he's doing, you hardly ever see the crest until he's trying to charm a female. When he's got a female close by, then he'll do his little aerial display. He'll fly straight up, puff himself out, tip backwards, and then tumble back down to the ground. But that red crest only comes out when he's on the ground, and he flares it out open like lots of feathers, like a crown, and then he does like a little bit of a hopscotch. He does sort of a hop, skip, and dance around the female and hopes that impresses her enough. But very difficult. I've only in my entire career seen the sort of mating display once with the red-crested korhaan, so it's definitely not something common to see at all. So we can see, at least it's still warm, so there is quite a few birds still out. The wind has picked up quite a bit because of the types of weather that we've got at the moment. So that does tend to make some of the animals a little skittish. Let's pick this way, then we're not going straight into the sun. That might be a little bit easier for the camera. So we've got, maybe the weaver will come. Okay, we're just going to show you a quick weaver's nest, but nobody seems to be home, but somebody else is live and available this afternoon. We're going to send you across to Pridelands.
It's a pity that the weavers aren't home. It doesn't seem like we've got any animals this afternoon either with all of the wind. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Kat, and we are here at Pridelands Conservancy. We're going to be driving around, hopefully trying to find something, but it's really not nice weather for things to be out in the open. So from here we're actually going to head to the east, where it's a lot thicker, although it's quite thick where we're driving at the moment. But there's some nice sickle bush thickets and the drainage lines which are densely populated with tamboti trees and some knobthorns and marulas, which might provide a little bit more shelter. So we're going to try our luck down there, and maybe we'll find a buffalo herd or some elephants. But we have already checked Leopard Dam, and sadly no luck at Leopard Dam at all. Not even an Egyptian goose. So we'll see how it kind of goes. Oh. Also, because it's been so cold, there aren't really any insects out and about either. Otherwise, there'd probably be loads of insects on all of the flowers that are around at the moment. Definitely we're seeing lots of bugs while I was at Makalali, which is another one of the areas that Eco Training trains at. It's also tricky to find birds, but we will see if something flies up and lands in a tree. It's also been raining a lot. I'm waiting for the next set of rain to come in. It looks like it's creeping upon us. It pretty much rained the entire day. So the roads are also very, very wet at the moment. which also makes it quite limiting as to where we can drive. Nothing up there. Yeah, I think the lower lying areas are probably going to be our best bet. I think the Dartian comms are a bit soft today, unfortunately. You've said that you hope we find Susan. I always hope that we find Susan, but they headed north yesterday, so I actually don't think that they're on the property anymore. I think that they've gone into Jajani, which just lies to the north of us, so maybe they'll come back. We'll just have to have a look around. We did check there. I didn't see any elephants around that end of the reserve. But they'll definitely be in the drainage lines. Unfortunately, we can't off-road either. So we saw lots of vultures gathering in a section this morning, whether it's because of the weather that's set in, that they're just roosting up in trees, or if there is something on a kill. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go in there with the vehicle either way. It's just too wet to drive off-road, and unfortunately we have to be very sensitive. Not unfortunately, we must be sensitive about how we drive, and you can't just off-road all the time, otherwise you can imagine what the vegetation with the bush would look like. It would be terrible. So we won't be doing that. So we're going to have to just hope that animals are out on the roads today. Also, there's just been nowhere for the water to go over the last few days, and we've had a silly amount of rain here. I'm sure you've seen the photos of how Prideland's camp is underwater. So take that and put that all over the reserve. That's pretty much what it's like. And we haven't really had many very hot sunny days, because every other evening it's raining, and then the rain that we've had in the last 24 hours has been quite a bit as well. I've probably driven past about 10 leopards already. The grass is so long. Oh, that's loud now. Ow. Okay, that seems to be working again. Right, off to the east we go, and hopefully we will find some of the bigger mammals just trying to shelter themselves from the wind.
Hi, I'm Sue. I'm from South Africa, and I'm the incredibly lucky winner of the Tswalu competition. Tswalu has so much to offer, but we're really looking forward to the game viewing options, as going out with a personal guide who has so much knowledge will just be exceptional. Motsi Lodge looks absolutely amazing, and we're so looking forward to spending time there. It really is out of this world. I only registered as an explorer towards the end of January, so when the email arrived stating that I was the winner, it took me totally by surprise. I'd just like to thank Wild Earth and Tswalu for this most incredible prize. It really is a dream come true.
Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Oh, my dear, I do find you most attractive when you're covered in bird lice. Oh, Charles, I love it when you peck at my head and clean the bird lice off me. Let me say hello to Barry here. Hello, Barry. I'm just going to examine you for some bird lice. Charles, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. Oh, all right. I shall look for bird lice for myself then.
My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced, and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Hello, boy. You are a monster. And he's coming right up to us. Hello, boy. Oh, settle down. Settle down. He is very, very close. He's pushing his trunk against the car. You can feel the car moving. Hey, 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 hey. Stop that.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
So we've just got a female kudu, but she's got a little calf with her. It's about a 1-month-old calf. There you can just see just ears and stripes. It's hiding very well, and we've been playing merry-go-round because we've been going forward, they've been going backwards, we've been going backwards, they've been going forwards. So there we go. Now you can see the little calf. Beautiful. So she's been hiding that calf for at least the last month in the grass in a thicket. She's all by herself. So she comes to feed the calf, and then she'll go off feeding herself while the calf lays hidden in the thicket, and then she'll come back regularly throughout the day just to suckle the calf, and the calf will stay hidden, and then from about a month to 6 weeks, that's when they start moving with the adult, and then she'll try and get herself back into the herd that she came from for extra protection. So it isn't uncommon to see a single kudu around at the moment, but it was nice to see the little baby, and it really didn't know what to do with the vehicle, but whatever the mother does, it does, and she seems to be not completely relaxed, but she seems to be not as phased by the vehicle, so the calf is then learning whatever the mother does, then the calf does, so it just learns from that behavior, and the same works with a lot of other animals. However habituated or used to vehicles the parents are, that's how the calves or the youngsters become. It's the same with lions, with cheetah. As long as the parents are relaxed, then the calf relaxes relatively quickly because it trusts whatever the parent is doing. So we've got these nice, we're coming into an open clearing, which sometimes gives us some springboks. So it's just beautiful little yellow patches of Kalahari sunflowers. Oh, there's an ostrich. Okay, I'll just go forward for Morgan. And there in the open clearing, 2 male ostriches, just to 11 o'clock. Everything's walking away from us today, but there is a nice male ostrich. You can tell clearly by the black feathers. I'll go forward some more. They are walking a little bit more into the open clearing. There's a ground squirrel in the road. We can catch up the ostriches shortly. There's a bit of a road block. A nice little ground squirrel. Looks like it's digging, yeah, there we go, eating some roots of the nice green grass. And it's just gone up the road. So they'll use their tails for a sunshade. Sometimes you see their tails holding their tails up and over their backs, but at the moment the sun is not shining, so they also sometimes use their tail, a fast movement of the tail, to distract predators, and then they put it down, and the predator would be looking for where was that tail, and the squirrel's got it lying flat on the ground. It always amazes me, they have an ear just like a human. It's exactly like our ear. You can see there, gobble, gobble, gobble. You can only see the one, which is quite strange. It looked like a male, but you normally find the males in little bachelor groups. So the males live separately to the females in the ground squirrels, and then they only go visiting the females when there's one ready for breeding. Sinak is asking the question, how many ground squirrel species are found in the Kalahari? So it is only this one. So sometimes it's called a Cape ground squirrel or just a ground squirrel, but it's only this one. Other areas in southern Africa, we have a tree squirrel. In Phinda, they have the Tonga squirrel. In Cape Town, they have the grey squirrels, which were introduced species, and they're doing quite well in the city of Cape Town. But the two... Yeah, so there's the three species of squirrels in southern Africa, but in the Kalahari, only this one. We don't get the tree squirrels here. So, oh, there he goes. We're going to try and see if we can catch up with those ostriches. He can move fast when he wants. There we go, and no ostriches. They've snuck away in the meantime. Oh, there's another squirrel. Also too fast in the hole, and he is gone. So they like these open clearings, those ground squirrels, because the vegetation's very short and lots of place to make burrows, and they're often making the burrows that the meerkats move into, the bat-eared foxes will modify, or other animals will use and modify. So the squirrels are real sort of avid diggers. They do like making large little colonies. Even some of the grasses are starting to die already from the heat of the sun, and we're starting to definitely have a temperature change most mornings. So we're going to send you now to Lauren, who would like to say hello.
I happen to know a lot about tree squirrels these days, more than I ever thought I could know. Anyway, good afternoon everyone, it is Lauren and I am on the dam cam, and my assistant Wally has, well, he's not showed up for work, which is, yeah, it's not very impressive. He needs scolding. However, the dam cam, you can see the sun is shining, the weather is causing absolute havoc here. It was raining extremely heavy earlier on. There's dark clouds on the horizon. There's definitely something rolling in, but the concern here at Juma now that we're all discussing is the state of the roads. So yes, we maybe only received 23 mils yesterday, and I actually don't know how much water's fallen today, but the end result is the roads are a mess. The more you drive on them, the more you get stuck on them. It's not only going to make the roads messy and sort of, once the soil hardens, make them even more difficult to drive on, it's actually keeping the soil integrity in place. Soil erosion of any landscape is a huge problem. So that's why we're not driving at the moment. A lot of the roads are closed, and we're really, really worried about how waterlogged everything is. So, of course, on the dam cam once again, but I have to say, it's very nice to see some blue sky. I mean, not much, but it's more than what we've had the past few days. I wish I was sitting at the hyena den right now, but sadly, that is not the case. So please send in your questions. There's not always activity happening on the dam cam, but I am happy to answer any questions, especially about hyenas and tree squirrels. Yes, tree squirrels. Wally is just a wild squirrel who's clearly realized that humans give a lot of love. Oh, Vivian, how long is a piece of string? We do not know. We're very much in the discussion stage right now. You can see there's lots of dark clouds. The rain is definitely not over for today. It's not a case of us not getting wet. You know, both Steve and I have been driving around soaking every single day. It's just the roads. So that will come from Michelle and co. It will come from the management team as to when the roads will dry out. Of course, it depends on where you are. It depends on if you're at the top of the crest, and depends if you're down in a sort of seepline drainage area. But yes, the roads are very, very waterlogged. The dams are full. But just here, where I'm about to show you... Oh, hello animals. My goodness, what are you all doing here? Let me get my bearings, because I do drive these roads all the time. So just down here, you've got this big dead tree in the center. Just off to the right of that, that's the overflow. So at the moment, you can actually see it on the dam cam, but what's happening is the dam is so full, the water is overflowing, it's running right down here, it's running in between these two trees and into the Mulwati. This is the start of the Mulwati. So the dams all have an overflowing pace as the roads. That's slightly worrying. It will dry up, this will pass, but for now it's just presenting challenges. I think the impala are absolutely over the moon. Look at them all shaking off, getting rid of all that excess water that's sitting on their bodies. I've got two boys here even deciding it's time to clash horns, literally. Is this a male and female grooming one another? How sweet. David, not at all. I'm sure as many of you know, I am a marine biologist and zoologist by degree. And I chose to specialise in the ocean. It was really only until I came to South Africa that I managed to really get into hyenas. And I just want to apologise, everyone. I didn't realise my tribute to Hukamuri didn't go live. Nobody told me. So I did this big tribute and it didn't go live. So I am very sorry for that. I will do that once again when I go back out on the vehicle. It's very important that I do that. But my master's degree was actually in tropical coastal management. And although it referred to the coasts, what it was actually about was managing conservation from different angles. A political angle, politics, management of areas, especially when you've got a conservation area or an animal like Hukamuri sitting in an area where there's maybe conflict between different management bodies, economics, money, social, humans, and also the species involved. And that's what my degree was on. So of course, Hukamuri, the story, wildlife and human conflict, it's a very prominent one. It's a very difficult one, and there's so many factors you have to take into consideration, and that's basically what I studied my degree on, but more coastal related. And it's very sad that that's came up again, but we'll never get away from it. Wherever there are humans and there are wildlife, there will always be conflict, I'm afraid. We just need to get better at managing it. So I will do another tribute for you all. Sir 50, I'm not sure if it's record amounts of rain. I'm not up to date with the water volume, I'm afraid, but the cyclone, I think it came from Mozambique. It came from the sort of eastern side. We really suffered from the after effects of that, and it's just been quite relentless weather-wise. I was in Joburg for my leave, and it was also really bad there, and it's just been a really large amount of rainfall. Last summer was also very giving. So that means that the vegetation last winter remained quite thick. It definitely didn't go barren. And on top now you're building all the water levels. So now the vegetation's even thicker. It's the thickest I've ever seen it here. And of course, it's the most water that I've ever seen here. But as for record, I'm not sure, I'm afraid. Okay, I'm going to sit and admire these impalas for a little while, and you guys are going to head over to Deirdre.
Got him? So, you can only be in one place if you're on Safari Live and looking at a gemsbok, and that's back at Tswalu. So this one is a lot more cooperative. It's a little bit further away, so less worried about the vehicle, and in a more open area, so that's why a lot easier to see. And that's the wind, for sure. That's the wind that just makes them that much more skittish. Oh, okay, well, that was a nice big male gemsbok. So if you're trying to sort of at a distance see if it's a male or a female, you look at the horns. If they're very wide apart, then it's a male, and tend to be slightly shorter, and then very long and thinner and closer together, more a female. And we tend to find males solitarily, and then the females like to be in groups, but it's not always the same. The animals never read the books. There's no rule book with animals, so we write things in a book and then expect all the animals to adhere to those rules, and they don't. But we are there are already some young gemsbok calves around at the moment. They'll also be like that kudu hiding. Johnny is asking the question, how common are caracal in Tswalu? Not common at all. We've probably, what I can know of is probably 1 or 2 sightings a year. It's not a common one at all, and you would hope that they would be able to sort of have a large enough population to establish a bigger population, but we see them so infrequently. It's almost similar to a honey badger, actually. This part of the Kalahari, we don't necessarily see that many. And also, I mean, they literally are the color of the soil, so it might well be times where we don't actually see them because they're lying down and they blend in with the soil, but it is definitely one of those ones that for us here it's a rarity. And they are just such beautiful cats, the caracal. It's very similar to the lynx. Sometimes even people refer them as the lynx, with those sort of long pointy ears, sort of with tufted hair on the top, the little black hairs. Oh, I see some, looks like wild meerkats just to the right. We're going to stop. So because we say wild ones, because they're not an habituated group, so you'll see that the behavior for these ones will be slightly different, a little bit to the right. Morgan, there we go. It's in the burrow on the right hand side. There we go. So they're not as confident. They won't be as confident as the meerkat that we show you regularly when we go down on foot with the mobile pack. You can see a lot more nervousness about us, whereas the other ones don't even acknowledge us. They just ignore us completely, whereas all these meerkats are seeing is the size and the shape of the vehicle. They would have heard it coming, so they're aware that it's there, and they're looking and they're ready to bolt down that hole if need be. But then at the same time, other than worrying about us, they're looking sort of left and right to see if there's any other predators that they do need to be worried about. And caracal would be one of those. So would a jackal. So they might be at home early already today based on the type of weather that we've had. Because we had that thunderstorm roll over, it didn't necessarily drop any rain, but it was making a lot of noise, and there was a lot of wind, and feeding is good for them at the moment. They may also have pups. We don't know this group at all. They may also have pups in a den, be feeding and foraging relatively close by, and then they're ready to go down for the night. Hello. Number 3. It's like the one says to the other one, do you see what I see? Everyone's saying they're so cute. They are indeed. But I just find it fascinating between completely wild ones like these and then the ones that are so habituated, the ones that we show you regularly on TV, that the behavior towards the people is like we don't even exist. So Mpo is asking, when is their mating season? So with meerkats, it's a little bit different in that there's an alpha male and an alpha female, and theirs goes based on condition. So as soon as they've got good conditions, she's breeding, she produces pups, and the one group, her pups were 4 months old. They would have been 1 month old. She was pregnant already, and now she's produced another set of pups. So she's already got 5 new ones that are already about 20 days old. So they just constantly, if the conditions are good and they themselves are in good condition, they're breeding almost all year round. And so their successes will fluctuate based on how successful successful the group as a whole are able to feed and look after all of those youngsters. So we do tend to see that in winter seasons where there's very dry conditions and there's not necessarily a lot of food available, they don't necessarily manage to raise all of those pups successfully. And then the same goes summer season. There's lots of food available, and they sometimes tend to raise pups successfully. But there's always a spanner in the works, and that spanner is predators for them. We've had situations where a honey badger took out 3 in one night. We've had situations where a snake comes and eats all the pups. So then suddenly she had 5 and then she has none. So then she needs to come into estrus again and breed again. So for them, there's no set season. They just go according to their own sort of body condition and what their situation and their circumstances are. And their success also depends on the numbers in the group, because the larger the number, the more sentries there are to go and look out for danger. Maybe the more successful the group is to raise those. We've certainly found where the groups are 3 or less, they really, really struggle to raise lots of pups, or 3 or 4 pups, because there's only 3 of them themselves and they have to feed them and feed themselves and do duty. Sometimes it becomes a little bit challenging. So we've just counted 3. That's all the little heads that we've seen pop up so far. Oh, apparently there were 4. Darcy Ann's made an interesting observation. Her question is, why does these meerkats seem lighter in colour than the rock stars? I don't know. I don't think it'll be like an area-specific thing or a food-specific thing. Maybe the rock stars are just dirty meerkats that don't wash themselves often enough. But I can't... I do notice what you're saying, but I don't have an answer for that one. They're also going to start getting a thicker coat now as well, as we're starting to change the temperature, that it's getting a lot colder in the mornings. The meerkats are slowly coming out later. They are trying to build up as much body fat as possible and maybe get a slightly thicker coat. But there's a bit of a trade-off there, that sort of bare patch on the, sort of the bare skin on the front of the chest. It's not really bare, but it's very sparsely distributed with hair, if we put it that way. That's what they would use to warm themselves up. So, but also they themselves also, it's like a compromise between, do I have enough energy to stay warm but then go out foraging? Can they supplement that with food? But they don't want to overheat in the summer season, so they can't have too thick of a coat. So it's lots of compromise, which is why they spend time in the winter warming themselves up in the sun before they've got enough energy to go out feeding. They keep looking up, but I don't see, that's just a natural instinct to keep looking up in case there's like an aerial predator, like an eagle, but I don't see anything. We're going to carry on moving along down the road. We're going to leave our little friends in peace.
It's no secret that nature can heal. Some of our Wild Earth viewers are finding solace in the outdoors close to their homes during lockdown.
This is how I keep myself busy during lockdown. Beautiful little jumping spot.
I love walking in the open spaces near my home. Provides a moment of peace in a crazy world.
This is my fire escape with some of the birds I get to see. That's what it's like in New York City during lockdown.
Being in nature helps me to cope with the challenges of life and helps me to be humble and grateful.
It's magical watching everything turn into a winter wonderland as the snow softly falls.
Been doing lots of walking, dog walking, outside at parks.
This is my Ridgeback Drake. Our little slice of paradise is a provincial park called Hopewell Ross.
Connecting with nature is critical to stay positive during these tough times. Wild Earth encourages you all to find time to escape to nature.
We stopped as the dusk was settling and there was a zebra mare underneath the bush. She was lying down. We didn't really know what was happening, and then we saw it. Everybody, there's a zebra giving birth there. There's a zebra giving birth. This is a zebra giving birth. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, you clever mare. Well done. It's born, everyone. It's born and it's alive and it looks fine. This was, of course, an unusual sighting. Normally, herbivores like impala and wildebeest and zebra will give birth during the middle of the day. This is when their predators like lions and hyenas are fast asleep. But as this little foal took its first steps, the dying embers of the day had just gone over the western horizon, and it was just the time that the hyenas and lions were starting to get active and go out foraging. This is why we didn't light up the sighting, of course. It may have compromised the zebra's eyes and at the same time attracted those hyenas and lions to the activity.
My name is Lauren and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
So welcome back. We're still on our little bumble through the sand dunes. We're seeing what's out there this afternoon. The wind is proving to be pretty challenging. That'll definitely mess with the animal's sense of smell, as I said before. So they tend to try and find places to hide. We sometimes see the little steenbok here, which we always say you got to be live in order to see a steenbok because they never stick around for camera. Maybe today is the day. Ooh. Let's see. No, white-browed sparrow weaver that landed. There we go. Maybe we can get him. You see where he landed there, Morgan, on that camel thorn tree there? That he's on the left of the wire on the lower branch. And down. Oh, there he is. Oh, there's one on the top and one on the bottom. You've got a white-brown sparrow weaver. So this little chap, generally living in the colonies or in a group, and there is another one or two around. I can hear them calling. They're the ones that make that messy grass ball of a nest with multiple different nests all over one tree. And they'll have, some nests have 2 holes, and that's sort of for an emergency exit in case there's a predator in the tree like a snake. And then the other nests, the ones that they're going to breed in, as the breeding pair, the alpha pair of the group, they'll have a closed nest. These are cheeky little birds, though. I do like, they've got quite a bit of attitude. I've got some just outside my house, and if my bird bath is not full, they sit on the fence and they shout at me to fill the bird bath. Oh, you better hold on that he doesn't get blown off there. So they are seed eaters, seeds and insects. Quite a happy chap. So we were talking about challenges for birds, and certainly flying around in the wind is a challenge because it costs energy. If you're trying to go in one direction and the wind is blowing you in another direction, that does take extra energy. Everyone agrees that's a beautiful call. They are very vocal. I would say probably one of the first ones in the morning, even before the sun has risen. They are the ones talking. There are actually some nests on the left-hand side that Morgan will be able to show you. I think, can you see those ones? Unless it's the raisin bush. So probably find a little bit more left. I might have to go forward. Yeah, there's one there. There's one or two there. So... Of course, yeah, there we go. I was going to say, of course there's a raisin bush in the way, but you can see what I'm talking about by a messy grass nest, and with one entrance in some of them, and then some of them sort of a bit more of an upside down U, like a U-bend, with an entrance, two entrances. With the nice fresh grasses, they're busy building and fixing, and they'll have nice green nests. So that one doesn't look like it's quite finished yet. That one on the left with a hole in it still looks like they've got to complete some more of that nest to close it off, because it wouldn't make sense to have a hole out exposed to the elements. If there's rain or anything, they're going to get wet. So I think that they're still busy building there. I can see lots of green grass on that nest, so it hasn't started to dry yet. So I think that they're still busy in the construction phase. Just go forward a little bit. There we go. Then you can probably see it much better. Much better. So most likely that these two little birds that have been chirping belong with these nests. So quite a marvel, I think. I think it's the most amazing thing. Just think about it. They've only got 2 little feet and 1 beak, and they make that with 2 feet and 1 beak. And I suppose a brain. It requires a brain in order to make that too. Without that, it probably wouldn't be possible. Tato is asking the question, do many birds die in the heavy rains? Most birds, if it's raining heavily, will try and find some form of shelter, but certainly young birds that don't necessarily have complete down covering or complete feathers to keep themselves warm, they could be victims of a heavy downpour, as well as I would say probably hail is the biggest thing that sometimes when you land up with a large number of bird deaths is if there's a lot of hail. And I mean, in South Africa, depending on the area, you can have pea-size hailstones, but then you can also have right up to golf ball-size hailstones. So I think if they're not able to find shelter in a nest or under the eaves of a roof or somewhere that's better protected than just the branch of a tree, I think hail can be detrimental to them. Carry on through our vast Kalahari landscape and see what else is around. This way, we're going to send you that way to Lauren.
One of my favorite birds out here. I always get asked, what's your favorite bird? What's your favorite bird? And I have many. Are you allowed to have many favorites? I'm not sure, but I do. And this is definitely one of my favorites, the grey heron. They're beautiful, but not only that, they're incredible at what they do. This does not appear to be the greatest of all camera work. And Davy sitting behind me is going to judge me. But it is a grey heron at the end of the day. Maybe if I zoom out, that'll be a little bit better. not clear at all, but you will find grey herons around the water body naturally, and as soon as it gets even a little bit hungry, it's going to step its toes into the water and get ready to hunt. And they really are remarkable hunters. Unique strategy of just moving through the water ever so slowly to catch their prey. Okay, so of course I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to sit here, but we are going to send you guys across to Pinda to say hello.
Welcome to a rainy and beyond Pinda Private Game Reserve. We've come across a nice crash of rhinos, some white rhinos that are very muddy. Looks like two little groups that have joined each other. A mom and calf on the right hand side, and it looks like three or so younger animals on the left hand side there. My name is Dewald Puerta, and behind the camera we've got Simon. Welcome to and beyond Pinda Pride Game Reserve. As you can see, I've got my rain jacket on, and even Simon's got his on. We've been having some really good rain in the last week or so, and it is drizzling a little bit, but enough for us to stay out and about and see what else we can find. But very lucky to find these rhinos really close to a road. There you can just see the youngster walking in front of mom there. Saw a few red-billed oxpeckers flying in between these rhinos as well. They're just enjoying this nice green grass after all the rain. Nice thick-leafed grass growing on the hillside here. Earlier there was one of them that had a full mouth of grass and picked up and chewed and watched us. I'm hoping that this female keeps on feeding in this direction, because there is a bit of a mud wallow here on our left hand side, and I'm hoping that she might come for a wallow. But we'll see. With it being so rainy and cool, she might not be as keen to go and mud wallow as always. Maybe just to get rid of some parasites, but definitely not to cool down, as it's nice and cool after all the rain that we've gotten. You can see those ears, one of them just listening to us all the time, while the other listens behind her. Look at that. As one turns towards us, the other one turns away. Oh, there's one urinating there in the back. Just see a stream of water coming out there. You can see how she's moving her head from side to side as she's just feeding on the grass there. Elizabeth, you're asking if these white rhinos have feet similar to elephants. They actually do not. They are odd-toed ungulates, so they actually have odd amount of toes, as it mentions. So white rhino and black rhino both have 3 toes. So where an elephant's foot is quite round, I guess you can see the toenails on an elephant's foot and what seems to be some toes, but with the rhinos, they're more pronounced and they don't have the round foot that a elephant does. So she's putting her head right into the bush there, and there she's going around. So you can imagine the grass that's growing next to the bushes, and under the bushes are protected from the sun, so maybe a little bit more moisturous. And now just behind the thicket there, we'll see if they come out on the other side. You can hear some birds calling in the background. Trying to call while it's not raining as hard. James, you're saying time spent with rhinos is time well spent. I agree. Oh, there's a Cape Glossy starling that's just joined us on the bush close to the rhinos there, and for good reason. The starling is probably coming to sit around these rhinos. I can hear a few others in the bushes to the left hand side. It's probably going to come and join. Oh, there, just flew down to the rhinos. So definitely there for the insects that these rhinos are maybe disturbing while they are moving around in the grass. So this is a interesting symbiotic relationship between these starlings. So when the starling spots some danger, it'll fly up or fly away, or if any other animals get close to them, and then the rhinos will obviously realize that there's something close by and maybe pick their heads up and have a look or smell or hear whatever the bird has, and also get alerted to it. And obviously the bird is getting all the insects from the rhinos disturbing them. Ruth, so you're asking how do we know whether or not these are black or white rhinos? So this rhino that we can see now on the left hand side of that bush there, the obvious way is to look at their mouths, but because we can't see his mouth, I'll tell you a different way to have a look. If you can see about halfway down its back, almost closer to its bum, there's a big bump on its back there. So a black rhino will have more of a pronounced saddle in the back rather than that bump there. And its head will be sitting a little bit higher up on its neck, and obviously would not be feeding on grass. Feeding on grass is a dead giveaway that these are white rhinos, because a black rhino would be feeding on twigs and leaves. You can see one on the right hand side of the bush, just its head sticking out now. It's actually smelling there where one was urinating earlier. So you see it's coming back around again. And now it's starting to feed. Renata, you are asking whether or not black and white rhinos can interact with each other in the wild. They do share habitats, so obviously there's lots of trees and small bushes for black rhino to feed on in this area, like I'm sure you can see in the background there. So white rhino and black rhino do occur in similar areas, but they are in actual fact completely different genuses and species to each other. So they don't really interact in any social manners or anything like that. It is super, super rare and does not happen in the wild that they mate. I think it has happened in captivity once or twice, but the end result of that is an animal that cannot survive in the wild. And so in the wild like this, these white rhinos, there might be black rhinos in the area as well, but they won't really have anything to do with each other or show any aggression to each other. I suppose the only thing that might get them to come together is where there's obviously food sources. Look at this one coming around. It looks like the big female coming to listen to us. Wonder if there's a bit of a breeze that's blowing her way now, so she's maybe smelling us a little bit more. There's the youngster as well. Look at those ears just listening to us. There you can see that flat mouth that I was talking about earlier, that the white rhino has, that square-lipped, where a black rhino will have more of a pointy lip that is quite prehensile, and they can grab stuff. It's almost like an extra finger that they've got. Imagine like a miniaturized trunk, if you will, used to pull little branches into their mouths and leaves into the mouths. Jaden, thanks for the question. You're asking if whether or not rhinos have any predators. The only time they've got predators is when they are a little bit younger. I've heard of hyenas taking down young rhinos, and we even have a pride of lions on Pinder that has taken down a rhino before. Oh, the rhinos are disappearing behind the bush here on the left-hand side. Oh, there you can just see the one that's backed away quickly. They're at a dungmidden there, I think. We can just see his hindquarters there. Oh, yes. Going to the toilet there. There's a little dungmidden just around the corner there. And they are obviously all defecating there now and letting their dung also sit around their midden. And in that way, they can pass on information to other rhinos that come and pass by. They have unfortunately moved off into the thicket now. Oh, there's one coming back out. They are chasing each other around a little bit, but for now I think we are going to stick around and we'll see if we... Oh. Yeah, like I said, I think we'll stick around and see if these rhinos maybe come out to interview for us again.
Do you dream of traveling to a far-flung wilderness location where life continues as normal? A place where you can escape to nature and breathe. If you become a Wild Earth explorer, then this could soon become a reality. Subscribe today and stand a chance to win regular travel prizes. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Converging game path will invariably lead you to a water source, but treat all water as suspect. One of my favorite ways of purifying water is to filter out the particulates. And by just filtering it through your sock, you can clear out most of those. You can put water into a snail shell and you can boil it over a fire or using a chemical like chlorine or colloidal silver.
My name is Steve, and one of my favorite things at Wild Earth is getting questions from you. The type of questions that I really like are those ones that really help us to unpack and understand and really integrate the ecological knowledge and fully appreciate the importance that animals such as these Cape buffalo bring to the ecosystem. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you're going to have to register on the website. But once registered, just head on over to the live safari page and enter your question under the live feed.
Guys, just watch what's happening. See, watch the elephant, watch the lions. See, the first ones to run are the cubs. Can you see them? They are right here. I'm not sure how scared you were, but I was quite nervous. But absolutely incredible.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and I come to you live every day here from Tswalu Kalahari in South Africa. My favorite bird has to be the sociable weaver. The enormous nest that they create, their survival tactics to inhabit these harsh and unforgiving environments, and as well as their complex social arrangements is truly remarkable. And the interconnectedness with the ecosystem shows us that we are too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
So we're about to go up and over the dune, so a beautiful scene should reveal itself shortly. And whenever we get to the top of what we call the dune crest, we just scan around. There's rumors that there were some cheetah in this area yesterday. So when I say rumors, there were some footprints, and the guides and the trackers were tracking them. But also, always the challenge is that in the evening times you run out of light to track them, and we're dealing with, once again, quite high sour grass. So trying to find two male cheetahs tracks walking through the sour grass with fading light is always a challenge. So we're also going to hope there's partial luck and we just bump into them. That's also a nice way to do safari, is to just drive and then maybe bump into them. So cross your fingers and your toes and see, maybe we're fortunate. So these areas, we always talk about the going through areas of blackthorns, and these there's a little, beautiful. Let's see if you want, that was a lacewing. If you saw it flitting past on screen, it was a lacewing, which is an adult, and it was an adult antlion, was what it was. Not a lacewing, an adult antlion. So I was talking about the plants here. So these ones are a little bit different. They're quite sort of scrabbly, but nice little scrub. It gets to probably about shoulder height. It's known as a 3-thorn, but ironically got no thorns. So we're going to carry on our cheetah mission.
We've just repositioned a little bit, and as you can see, we've got another view of these rhinos as they started moving a little bit further away from the dung midden and are just feeding all together. You can see the little youngster in the middle there as well. A slight breeze coming over us now. The youngster sticking right next to its mother there. It was being very cheeky to another one of the younger ones on the right hand side earlier, snorting at it and chasing it away from its little patch of grass that it was chewing on. There's quite a few bit of pushing and shoving happening in between those younger ones on the right. Look at the youngster chewing there. You can just see him chewing, opening his mouth up and down. I don't know if you can hear all the crickets calling around us. Vivian is saying these rhinos in this lush green background looks amazing. I'm sure they are very, very happy as well with all the green grass that's growing after the rain. Of social hierarchy happening between these rhinos here. I think all of them want the nice patches of grass. I don't know if you saw the ones on the right hand side there. The one was just coming closer and the other one pulling his ears back immediately, being very submissive. Oh, there's a bit of a sneeze. See the one on the right hand side there? It's got a lot of mud on it. Stand by. And it's probably to get parasites off of it, and so, like I said earlier, maybe not for overheating that they're going in and rolling in the mud at this point, but maybe to put a barrier between their skin and some biting flies or parasites like ticks. And then maybe once it's dried a bit, I'll see if they can go and find a spot to go and scratch that mud off, and hopefully it takes some of the ticks off with it. Evan, you are asking a really good question whether or not rhinos are browsers or grazers. So it depends on what type of rhino you looking at. So these are white rhinos, like we said earlier, and they are feeding on grass. So when an animal feeds only on grass, it is a grazer. And a black rhino, for example, feeds only on twigs and leaves from trees and bushes, and that is called a browser. And then you get something like an impala or something like a kudu that might feed on leaves and grass, twigs and leaves and grass, or elephants, and those are called selective, or they are mixed feeders, and they'll be feeding on grass and leaves. And these rhinos, do they just feed on grass all the time? I don't know. Since we've started looking at them, they haven't really stopped feeding at all. They've just been going all the time. This one here on the left-hand side's quite a distance away from the rest. I wonder if the others have been pushing it away the whole time. Cincinnati, you're asking whether or not rhinos always stay in groups. They are herd animals, or should I rather say small group animals. So younger animals and females you'll often see in small groupings that we call crashes. So this is a crash of rhinos, the collective noun. And then it's the dominant bulls that are always by themselves. The only time they'll really meet up with other rhinos is to check if the females are in estrus or when they are fighting for their territory. So only for mating and for territorial reasons. So when you see a rhino by itself, good chance it's maybe a female that wants to give birth, or it is a bull that is on a territorial march or is a scent marking or a territorial bull. So this one's creeping closer and closer to the rest of the group, but still looking a little bit nervous to go too close to them. Like they are disappearing, slowly but surely disappearing into the thickets on the left hand side there. I'm hoping that they do a little bit of a loop around and they keep on grazing and they'll come back into this open clearing here. To see their bums sticking out there past this bush here next to us. I don't know if you can hear all the crickets calling around us. With it being so overcast, there's a lot of insects that's out and about after the rain. Quite a few birds that's calling as well, taking the chance to get out and about while the rain's not falling. But for now I think we're going to stick around and see if we can get another view of these rhinos, and then we'll send you over to Tswalu.
Awesome that you get to see some rhinos. Oh, there's another gemsbok. They're out in full force this afternoon. The gemsbok out in the dunes. I'm just going to reverse a little bit. There we go. That'll probably give you a nice head to tail version of a gemsbok. So this one is a nice example of a male. Nice wide horns, but a little bit shorter. But not a very cooperative individual. And there he goes. So it's not uncommon to see the male gemsbok all by themselves. We'll we were heading up and over the dunes, so we're trying to close the block at this stage, but these blocks are not small, so we sort of go up and over, but some of the blocks consist of about 3 different dunes, and we know these male cheetahs like to walk across the top of the dunes. And why they do that is because then they've got really good visibility on the streets on either side. We call these dune streets. So if they're high up on the top of the dune, they've got visibility into the one on either side and can descend down into that area if they do see potential prey. So the 2 boys that we are looking for are capable of taking down adult gemsbok. They do often also feed on adult kudu. They're quite good at catching relatively much prey, so they'll work together catching that. So we are trying to see if the tracks cross over here, and if we haven't found them yet, then they're probably heading towards the west, one of the dams. So we've closed the southern end of the block, a little bit of the western end, and now we're trying to close, we closed the northern end, and now we're trying to close the eastern side to see. So that's effectively when you know that they're in the area, you basically just do the blocks to pick up, see if you can find the fresh tracks. Oh, just got to navigate through some thick sand here. So it's just like we sort of going over the top of the dune, scanning down into the dune street to find animals, so the cheetah would do exactly the same. And as we go to a phase, it's not quite full moon at the moment, but as we start going towards the full moon phase, they do often hunt at night as well. Ian is asking the question, do we have any invasive grass species in the area? Not that I know of. Everything here is meant to be here. You do get weeds, you do get sort of weed plants that come in, and some of these areas, because they've been old farms previously before they made the Great Tswalu, especially around the homesteads, you had them, the people would plant a mesquite tree, which is like a prosopis, it's a scientific name, and that would provide a lot of shade. So, and then for garden decoratives, you'd get like cactuses, queen of the night, so not quite grasses, more other types of plants. We do deal with the prickly pear is another one. So whenever we take over those areas, then we go in there and we remove those, because we don't want those competing with anything else if you are aiming to return the Kalahari to itself. So not invasive grasses that I know of. It'd probably be quite competitive for grasses, because there are so many that are naturally occurring in the area and well adapted to their environment. You have every grass has sort of what you would call a niche, where they fit in perfectly based on pH, so the pH of the soil, whether it's alkaline or acidic, whether they like really sandy soils, whether they like really clayey soils, and going too far outside of either of those, then the grasses are not comfortable. And that's what you probably find with exotic grasses, that the conditions in those areas don't fit within the niche of what the grass wants, so therefore it doesn't necessarily proliferate or propagate successfully. So it sounds like Deerwold's managed to relocate those grey lumps. Head across that side.
We've just come a bit forward, and I was hoping that the signal was going to be great, and look at how close these rhinos are to us now. Just going to keep my voice nice and low and not talk too much. I don't want them to move away because of us. feed straight towards us. Let's see. Listen if you can maybe hear the youngster squeaking there. They are getting to us. Listen to them chewing. To their skins rubbing against each other as well. They move really close together. Females listening to us. Second horn is just starting to grow out. So probably over 6 months old, getting to about a year old or so. Look at them coming out on the road here in front of us. the youngster there on the left-hand side of the road now. Look at the toes there. Now we can see their feet properly. Oh, listen to that. The youngster making his little squeaking sound to his mother. How incredible was that, having them so close to us. I think the fact that we were slowly inching closer as we were sitting with them earlier made them realize that we are not a threat. We gave them time to get used to us being around them. That's why they are okay with us. And I think all these other youngsters were looking at the reaction of the older female. And she's obviously happy with us being so close to her and her youngster. So amazing having such a big animal so close to us. Colin, if you have a look at this rhino inside of the tree, you were asking what is the best sense. I think it is a mixture. They've got really good hearing and really good smell. If you just look at their faces, you can see how big their ears are and how big those nostrils are. And then if you have a look, their eyes are fairly small compared to the rest of their head. So just give you an idea of what they rely on the most. So smell and hearing is a very big one. And then eyesight doesn't play as big of a role for them. I think what I've seen before with the reaction of rhinos to vehicles and so on is they'll often hear be too worried about it, but as soon as our scent blows onto them, then they start to change their behavior a bit. So I think their sense of smell is by far their most important one. Like it is for a lot of other animals, a lot of information that comes through a sense of smell. Look at this one chewing the grass. So I don't know if you've all realized by now, but this is a big female with her calf, her current calf, and a lot of other youngsters that have possibly left their mothers not too long ago that is joined up with them for some companionship. Possibly even a previous calf from this female that's come and joined them, or that is still with her. You can see how high that mother stands out above all the rest. For now, while these white rhinos are just feeding, we're going to send you over to a jackal in Pridelands.
So we've come on out to good old trusty Impala impala plains, sorry, and there's someone looking for somebody else on the radio, and now you can see how nervous the impala are, and just to the bottom left-hand side of the screen you might be able to see some ears twitching. That is because there is a black-backed jackal, and if you watched the sunset safari yesterday you would have seen the magnificent sighting we had, perhaps of the same individual that was feasting upon an impala leg. Definitely didn't belong to either one of those impalas. I counted 4 legs each, so you know that's good, but very camouflaged in there. And that female impala it's very difficult to see because she's just of course standing behind a bush, but she is keeping a close eye out on that jackal, making sure it's not trying to sneak up on the young lamb that's with it. I don't know why she's out on her own though. I mean, there are some other animals that are on the plains too that she could quite easily go and stand with. But sometimes what impala do is, or any of the prey species actually, so the herbivores will actually walk towards predators to sort of show them that we know you're here and you can't sneak up on us. Obviously a lot of these predators rely on the element of surprise. Not alarming. Sometimes they will alarm for jackals, but not this afternoon. There you can see a wildebeest. But unfortunately the jackal is now hiding in the grass. Now, Jerome, I'll tell you a very interesting story about what I've once seen with a jackal and impala, because you've asked if the impala will actually chase off chase off the jackal. So now there's one zebra and a couple of wildebeest and of course the impala. So once upon a time when I was in the Mara Triangle, and it was actually a very similar day to what it is today. It started raining quite a bit, the wind picked up anyways, and all of a sudden there was a lot of commotion with the impala herd. I was actually sitting with a pride of lions, the Olololo pride of lions. So anyways, we raced on over to see what was happening, and there was a pair of jackals that had an impala lamb, and they were trying to kill it. Now, it was very fascinating. The mom was standing there for a minute, and she was running up to the jackal. Anyway, she turned around, and she disappeared. Now, of course, this jackal is now trying to kill the lamb, and the next minute, this female impala, the mother of the lamb that the jackals were eating, came running back with the big ram that was in charge of the herd, and he came through and he actually chased the jackals off, which was amazing to see, because it was so strange how she almost went to go, it seemed like she went off to call for help, because this lamb was new, probably only a few hours old. She was still kept away in a sort of a thicket. She didn't want to be she didn't want her lamb to be so vulnerable out in the open, and the ram came through and chased them off, but unfortunately the damage was done, and the impala lamb didn't survive, and the jackals then feasted upon it. So that was quite interesting. And then I recently saw a video of a waterbuck chasing away a cheetah, a female waterbuck, from her little one too. So definitely think that an impala would try and chase a jackal away. Interesting. We're going to see what else we can find on the plains. Maybe there's another jackal lurking about, or if we go across, I think, to Lauren to see what she's up to.
Oh, that was perfect. Okay, well, that was a group of Abdom's storks. They're going to go and land where there's a whole nother group of Abdom storks, which is great. It's that sort of the pure influx of, or the success of the armoured ground cricket as an emergence, and they are here feeding on those armoured ground crickets. But we've got another chap over here, a beautiful roan bull. So we'll chat about him for a little bit. The storks seem to be quite busy feeding on crickets there, so we'll catch up with him shortly. But isn't he just impressive? I always marvel at the fact that their ears are so long. That's it. He walks out of shot. So we'll head down the road and see if we can catch up with those storks. They actually had quite an interesting thing. When they were sitting in the tree, they defecate on the back of their legs, and then their legs turn completely white. And that's a behavior amongst the storks known as Urohidrosis, where they sort of, it's almost like urine, but it's defecation on the back of their legs, and that helps them keep them cooler because they almost coat their legs white, which would reflect heat away from their legs and help them lower their temperature. So I'm just going to stop a little bit further away, and you can just see this is something very unusual for Tswalu, but this is just because of our rains, because of the abundance of the armored ground cricket that they have come in. You would see them mostly on croplands, in farming areas where there's lots of irrigation, where they would find lots of sort of crickets, locusts, grasshoppers. And the other day we called these are non-breeding intra-African migrants. It's a lot in one sentence, but basically they'll head back come April, relatively soon. They'll start heading back to northern Africa and then breed in northern Africa. But there's so many of those armored ground crickets at the moment that there's no competition. So they can afford to travel as a large flock of birds. So the Abdom stork, different to the black stork, because you can see that sort of blue facial skin that's almost bare, like a little white crescent across the top of the wing, and then generally black legs, but if you are seeing ones with white legs there, that's as a result of the Urohidrosis. And they look like there are a couple of juveniles in there as well. So with these unprecedented rains across the country at the moment, we're getting birds that you don't typically see found in areas. Catherine is asking the question, do we get marabou storks at Tswalu? No, not at all. I don't know why we wouldn't get them, but we don't get them. So distributionally it's out of their range. A marabou stork kind of fits in similar to a vulture, and we don't have that many vultures. We've got a white-backed vulture, the odd lapis-faced vulture, and but they nest quite far to the north of Tswalu, and we don't often see the vultures on Tswalu. They've got like a funny little whistle. I can hear them sort of chittering and whistling amongst each other. You would not want to be an armored ground cricket in there somewhere. You'd have to hope that there's a little hole that you could hide in. You probably find they have quite a lot of success actually foraging like they are in one large group, because a cricket that hops away from one bird maybe bumps into another one. So there's almost like a collective success. I believe the viewers are saying it's amazing to see so many. I'm going to just try and go forward a little bit, but I'm hoping that starting the car is not going to do that. Make them all fly away. Oh no. Oh no. We've just given the armored ground crickets there a mini reprieve. I thought that might happen, that they fly off, and that's exactly what they did. And that's also known as allomimetic behavior. When one bird reacts to a fright or what they deem as danger, they all react. So one spooked and then took the rest of them with, and that's important. If they don't if they don't react, they could get caught by a predator. So however the one behaves, the others do. And it's the same concept of starlings in a murmuration when they twist and turn, and you see those beautiful shapes that they make.
How insane is that animal?
This is out of this world. Fantastic. Good, Mama.
Wow, what a way to start off. Just such an incredible privilege to be out here. It just keeps on delivering.
There you go, there you go. Heart is pumping right now.
3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Look at this, everybody. We've got a live kill.
The cock's holding the tail. It's holding tight. Lucky wildebeest. There's nowhere to go. This is a disaster in the making.
This is the first leucistic zebra I have ever seen in my life.
Oh, here comes a lion. Run, little guy. Go on.
Something that I have never seen before in my entire life that you are now watching live.
My heart is in my mouth, everybody.
Look at this. It's gonna make it. It's going, it's going.
This is just too magical. Hi, little guys. That's great, isn't it?
Has it just pretended to be dead? That is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Look at that. Scuba Steve has got a friend.
You've got a friend in me.
It couldn't be a better morning. This is just too special.
Oh my goodness, we've got a turtle.
How epic is the fact that we're coming to you live on the Chobe River? It's the most incredible feeling to be here. This is live and we're in Rwanda. This is a very, very different adventure, charged with emotion.
Look at that little zebra about to be born. There's the head. Oh, you clever mare. Well done.
I did not think I would ever face my fears like this.
We have repositioned again, and now we've got these rhinos on this little hillside here next to us with the beautiful view of Phinda as we look over most of the northern part of the reserve that stretches out here in front of us. You can see the clouds building there in the distance, all coming this way, I assume, as we have quite a few predictions for heavy rain tomorrow. It hasn't rained as much today as the other days. That's why I think these rhinos are really enjoying a bit of dryness at the moment without the rain falling on them, and enjoying the grass in the meantime. Can you hear all the birds calling around us? There's an eastern nickiter calling in the background there. Just hear the sounds like water falling. Can hear a few frogs calling in the distance as well. Sinak grass, so there's not, I guess there is some grass that is more palatable than others, but They'll feed on most of the grass they can find. You'll maybe see them hang around the grass that tastes better for them a little bit more, but they'll definitely try and avoid some of the more poisonous like herbs that might be growing around or anything like that. Probably smell them also in between the grass as well. I think all the birds are starting to call quite a lot now as it's getting a little bit later, so trying to do all their last territorial calls before night falls. Don't know if you can see, but the light is fading as it's almost 6 o'clock here in South Africa, so the sun here where we are in Pinda, we right in the northeastern corner of South Africa. So the sun sets fairly earlier compared to the rest of South Africa. Oh, look, there's one of the rhinos now coming out into the open, joining the rest. There's these little flies that's sitting on us that have been sitting on the rhinos that are biting us here as well. Oh, a bit of a sneeze there from one of the rhinos. While these rhinos are just feeding, we are going to stick around, but then we'll send you over to Taylor in Pridelands.
So something else that we found moving around in the grass is a pair of crowned lapwings, and I am surprised that they haven't shouted at the jackal, because that's what these birds typically do. They're not necessarily very impressed by any intruders, and with it being such ideal, I suppose, breeding opportunities for these birds, I would imagine that there's maybe a nest around here. But anyways, it's a bit hard to tell considering they make their nests in the grass and on the ground with very, very camouflaged eggs, so it'd be impossible to see. Not that a jackal with a keen sense of smell would not be able, well, they'd definitely be able to snuff out their nest, but the jackal is just laying low for the moment. I actually can't even see it anymore, but it's literally just gone completely flat. There's a little head popping out. So even on Impala Plains, the grass is quite long. Normally doesn't get too long around here, but it'd be perfect for them to look for all sorts of insects. There's lots of grasshopper nymphs around at the moment. They're jumping left, right and centre. I'll be eating any of the termites that are also ants that are coming out of the ground after we've had a bit of rain. Plenty of food, which is why I said it would be a good time to breed, because if there's lots of food around for these little chicks, once they do hatch, if they do hatch, unfortunately they don't have a very good success rate, is that they start feeding almost immediately. They don't need to be looked after by the adults. They don't need to be fed by the adults. They are fully feathered, eyes open. They can literally hatch straight out of the egg and start running around, which is very important for a bird that nests on the ground and out in the open. You can also hear some arrow-marked babblers in the distance. They're very chatty, more chatty than the crowned lapwings, which is unusual. You wouldn't think that those colours camouflage very well, but I suppose that grass is so thick though as well. Might also be able to hear all the oxpeckers, that sound, as there are lots of impala and zebras you saw a little while ago. Sipho, yes, you've asked if it is indeed high risk nesting on the ground, 100%, but these birds have come up with ways to to try and evade the predators. So they make a very simple nest that's not particularly obvious. It's literally called a scrape, Tswalu. There's one just, have we got one? Otherwise the other one went to the left-hand side of the screen. It is just trying, there it is. Little, just gone off to the right a bit. It's just running through the grass. So not only is the nest very sort of simple and not obvious to the eye at all, the adults won't necessarily spend too much time on the eggs either. So they'll be out foraging, and only when it gets really, really hot will they come through and shade the eggs, and then the same thing goes obviously when it starts to get quite cool, and they'll need to sit on them. Because if they keep sitting on the eggs all the time, they're going to draw a lot of attention to themselves, although they obviously do sit on the eggs. But these birds are also great parents because they are quite aggressive to anybody that gets too close to the nest. So they'll either just swoop and bop them on the head and shout at them and announce their presence to all the other animals around in the area. And if you're getting mobbed, which is the behavior with birds that we typically see, we see it with a few other animal species too, but birds do it very well, where they'll literally swoop down and peck anything that's bothering their nesting sites or them, and really start to irritate them. They're not going to do too much harm, and they'll normally move away. And then they do this other really cool thing, Tswalu, and they do a distraction behavior. So one of the adults might pretend that they have, say, a broken wing, for example. So they'll open up their wing and act like they're injured. And if that jackal that we've just seen, which would definitely be a threat to the eggs on the ground, comes through, then the jackal might go, hang on, that looks like a much better, tastier meal. It's got more sustenance on it, so off I go. I'm going to chase after that. And the bird will literally lead the predator away if it's something like a jackal, and then once it's far enough away, it'll just fly back, which is very clever. You see it a lot. The longer you watch crowned lapwings, it's actually not a very uncommon behavior to see it all. You see it with a few different ground species, like thick-knees, for example. Water thick-knees and spotted thick-knees will do it too. You might find the bronze-winged coursers, although I haven't seen them do it. I would imagine they would exhibit some or very similar behavior. But there's quite a few different ground-dwelling birds that we see. I haven't seen it with franklins and spurfowls. I don't think they do it, although they've got lots of chicks at the moment. Definitely been seeing them running through the grass. Ian, from what I understand, I think both might sit on the eggs. I don't think it's just the male or the female. I'm pretty sure it's both of them that might take turns. I'm just having a quick look. I'm opening my app. What are these birds called again? Lapwings. It's amazing how all these apps are great to sort of use, especially when you're traveling around and you can't always lug your books about. So I just want to quadruple check because there's quite a bit of writing about them. With some birds, it'll just be the female that sits on the eggs, and then you might, in the case with a lot of ground-dwelling birds, you might have both of them sitting on the eggs. Ostriches is quite cool to see. You'll see male and female sitting on eggs, but the males don't necessarily just sit on one clutch of eggs. You'll see the females will lay their eggs in an area quite close together, and he'll just sit on whichever eggs he can. Let me just quickly read about incubation. Yeah, the female does most of the incubation, but the male will, of course, help here and there. I think that it depends on a number of different circumstances. Very, very quiet. There's actually I don't know if there still is a group of them that lives on Quarantine, which is an open area at Djuma, and they're quite gregarious birds. We used to see 5 or 6 of them around there making a whole bunch of noise. I used to sit with them actually quite often. Right. And we're going to move on from these birds now and see what else we can find if we go across to Deirdre to see how her afternoon is doing.
So we've got some antelope we haven't seen yet this afternoon. Some springbok. Looks like a female on the right and a male on the left. It's just sort of the 3 of them, and then there seems to be a juvenile. I'd almost want to say a family, but that's probably not really correct. It's possibly a female with her previous year's offspring, but that one's already only about 3-4 months old. That He's got little horns. And we look like we're in for potentially a spectacular sunset. It's already starting to show colours in the sky behind some of those shepherd's trees. I mean, we're still almost more than an hour away from sunset, and there's already a light pink sheen on the bases of those clouds. Oh, Springbok running towards us. We're about to be charged. Hold on to your seats. Here he comes. Oh, the others are trotting in behind. Very dainty little trot. Oh. There's a little... And for what, I don't know. There was absolutely no purpose to that. They've literally run 50 meters and stopped. Enough to make us have to reposition the vehicle, so we'll reverse. They're still in an open clearing. Oh, I can see the meerkats running in the background. Directly behind them at that clump is the little, I think it's a little Makala meerkats coming back from, oh no, it's not meerkats. It's also crowned lapwings. I thought it was meerkats. There they go. Oh, we almost got a jump. Almost. Oh, now they've gone completely. Well, we'll just carry on down the road and see if we can get to the dam. See what's there. So we didn't manage to find any fresh tracks of those cheetahs coming out of that block. So a little bit of a challenge. We're going to send you across to Ingala that would like to say hello.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to And Beyond Ingala. So I'm watching a little family of francolins. The rain has given us a tiny gap, although it is starting again. And it looks like it might be the female and one little tiny chick that you can see walking close to her. So I think they're also enjoying the gap in the weather this afternoon. So my name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari here at Beyond Ingala this afternoon. Behind the camera we have Owen. And we are hoping we get to stay out and that the rain doesn't get any harder. But at the moment, it seems like it is starting to come back again. But we are just very, very grateful to be out and appreciating the quiet after the storm. We had around 30 millimeters of rain today alone, which means a lot of our roads are not accessible at the moment. And the river, actually, where the lioness was with her cubs, is completely full, bank to bank, and flowing at quite a pace. So it seems like all of the crossings are inaccessible as well. But have a listen to all of the birds around us. I can hear some brown-headed parrots, some more crested francolins, and a lot of frogs. So it is quite a beautiful afternoon. The wind is picking up again. And because it's nice and cool, what I'm really hoping is animals are going to start moving around a little bit more now that it's a bit drier. And hopefully they start coming out. Oh, I love all the sounds after a storm. So there's still very ominous clouds in the background. And I think we're expecting a lot more rain today. Let's see if we can find them again. So they disappear quite quickly into the long grass. But it's so cute to see such a tiny little baby. And these ones are quite different because they actually don't hatch as helpless chicks like a lot of other species. There it is. They hatch completely ready to go. And actually when they hatch, it'll be about half that size. Oh, it's so cute. So So she probably would have had some more chicks, but unfortunately, they probably didn't make it. So there's a lot of predators that would eat the eggs, but also the tiny little chicks, especially when they're exposed like this in the road. And you can see that little chick is just sticking behind mom as much as it can, learning where to walk, what to look for to eat, and what noises to be scared of. Yeah, shame those little legs. It has to walk very fast to keep up with mom. You can see every time mom gets close to the tall grass, she's lifting her head so that she can make sure of anything that might be hiding. Seanak, we get quite a few different species of francolin and spurfowl. So our most common is this one, which is the crested francolin, but also the Natal spurfowl. We also get a Koki francolin, which has a lot more gold on it, and a Shelley's francolin. So those are the four that we tend to see a little bit more often. I'm going to move us a little bit forward because they are hiding behind that tree now. But every now and then you might hear of a wandering spurfowl or francolin species that we don't often get here, just arriving out of nowhere. We've had quite a lot of different species here recently because of all of the rain and the water. And with the cyclone, we even had some frigate birds that were spotted here, which is a coastal bird. Quite strange. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this little family to wander off the road into the grass, and I'm going to send you over to some kudus in this beautiful greenery.
Look at this spectacular gentleman. He's when he turns side on, he's got this massive neck, just a huge testosterone buildup. He's ready for fighting other males and ready for looking for females to breed with. But we have to get him to turn side on for you to understand that just that sheer bulge on either side of his neck. Hopefully he's not playing hide and seek now. That's so typical. I don't even see his horns moving through the thicket yet. There he comes, there he comes. So watch the way they walk. They put their back foot exactly where their front foot was. So that's when you're looking and you're tracking, that is known as track on track. So literally on top of where their front foot was, their back foot goes. And with kudu, moving through thicker environments, that's one of the ways to walk relatively quietly. But what's nice is we don't often get to show you that because there's often too much grass or vegetation in the shot. So the kudu do it. Any one of the spiral-horned antelope that belong to the Tragelaphus family, the kudu, the bushbuck, and the nyala all do what's called track on track. Literally put wherever their front foot was, they put their back foot in exactly the same place in the tracks, and you can see that quite clearly. So, oh, no, he stopped there. He started to feed. No. So he's moved on, we'll move on too.
Imagine having your own secluded African bush home where you and your friends can enjoy the ultimate safari experience. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, this could become a reality. Tumbeta House is located in the heart of Djuma Private Game Reserve, the home of Wild Earth. You could win a chance to stay at this intimate wilderness retreat, offering you the rare and highly sought-after privilege of your own home in the bush. The prize includes 3 nights for 6 people and includes daily game drives, a chance to see the Wild Earth camp, and have dinner with one of our guides. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer before the end of February 2021 and you could be heading to Djuma, the place that we call home. Available dates are limited, so terms and conditions apply.
Being a safari driver requires some serious multitasking ability. You've got to be able to talk, Look at the road, steer, and occasionally get the vehicle into the right gear.
Do not crash into any trees. Oh, that's a dozy.
Just jump into the car and hope for the best, and you'll see where it takes you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm surprised they're moving as fast as that didn't go well.
Who is the best driver? Well, me, of course, although some of the cam ops might disagree. Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Yuma Private Game Reserve for Wild Earth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on Wild Earth.
We have a baby pangolin. A baby pangolin. This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
Welcome back. We just missed a little Kalahari scrub robin that flew off quite quickly. But it has been quite an afternoon for some of the birds. But I'm just marveling at the cloud cover at the moment. It's just showing you beautiful partial blue skies. This is definitely partly cloudy. At least I like the with no chance of rain part of that weather forecast at this stage. But those types of clouds up there, you can actually see there's very high winds. There's very strong winds when you've got that sort of high cloud cover. There is more storm clouds in the west and in the east. I've just seen a Jacobin cuckoo, but now we're just going to get the tail sticking out the tree. In the road, Morgan, on the left-hand side, right down at the bottom, it looks like a little Mariko Fly Catcher. He's literally on the edge on the left there, on the ground. Yeah, there he is. It looks like a little Mariko. He is a flycatcher. He's a very light-coloured chest. So, and there's his friend, 2 Mariko flycatcher. They're normally very difficult to get. So, fortunately, we're live at this stage, which means they don't fly away while we're waiting to show them to you. So, the little Mariko flycatcher being an insect eater, a little insectivore, you can see a short, sharp, straight beak. Could we call that a kill? Maybe. I think so. So, just sort of a pale, light, sort of dusty, grey, brown on the back. The short little sort of black eye, short little black beak, and then that very, very pale colour to the chest is one of the distinguishing characteristics. There is There's another bird just in the tree above, but I'm not too sure if we're going to be able to find him. I'm literally straight up from him into the tree there. There's a Jacobin cuckoo, but we're only seeing the tail at this stage. Maybe a little bit more cooperative and it might turn around. So the cuckoos are almost heading out. They'll start leaving towards the end of March. They also Intra-African migrants. And they come here. We don't have an abundance of them like Djuma or Ngala or those areas would have. We get the odd few, but not that it's just deafening with cuckoo calls. The Jacobin cuckoos, they are brood parasites. So the female will lay her egg in another nest of another bird and rely on that bird to raise the chicks. But they always use a caterpillar to charm the female. So the male will go looking for caterpillars to go and present the caterpillars to the female to be the chosen male. So the Jacobin cuckoo, mostly black and white. I know you're not seeing it very clearly. It's one of those ones like catch-22. I can either show you in the book, which is probably going to be the better idea, because then he won't fly away. Because if I go forward with the vehicle, he probably is going to fly away. So, here we go. So, I'll show you in the book. Here, in the top left corner. Carrie's got another new bird for her list. That's amazing. So I'll go from the Jacobin cuckoo. Another one that we have been seeing is this one, the great spotted cuckoo, which is quite special. And then the Deirdre's cuckoo, which here, the little, the emerald green one. I know Lauren showed some of the viewers a Deirdre's cuckoo that was actually quite patient and sitting in one place. And yeah, that as soon as the Deirdre's cuckoos start calling, that sort of becomes half of my nickname. They go Deirdrick, and I'm like, yes. So that previous places I've worked, that's become my very short nickname. And the black cuckoo, we also get that one. That one kind of they call it. It's almost like he says, "I'm so sad." So that's the more common cuckoo species that we get here. He has flown off, so I'm glad we made the decision to rather show you in the book than try and go forward. So there are the odd cuckoos that will even sometimes overwinter with their host. If they're a little bit too young and they don't get that they need to migrate, sometimes you'll see them overwinter with their host, and you'll see arrowmark babblers flying around with this cuckoo, and the cuckoo is following them, and it's because they were raised by those arrowmark babblers. There he goes, just flew out in front of us. We're going to send you across to Taylor. Other than Deervelt, it seems to be a mostly ladies' drive, so she's got some hyena for you.
Goodness gracious, it is absolutely amazing, and I'm sure you all agree that this is the second time now we've been able to show you the Hyena Cubs of the Pridelands clan, which is awesome. This is another little cub. We didn't see this one this morning. There are now 3 of them out and about. So we had a moment where all 3 were sitting nicely together, and they look like they're all different ages, which is quite exciting. So the other 2, you can't really see them. They're just playing behind some of the bushes there, behind a tree. I don't think they're playing behind the purple leaf. The purple pod cluster leaf, cluster pod, that's what I almost said. Goodness, tongue twisters for days. Anyway, so hopefully they'll come back out again, but here's another little one. It looks slightly older than the youngest cub that we saw this morning. The youngest cub we saw this morning still had a fair amount of black on it, all the way down onto its front legs and its back legs, and almost not quite up to its shoulders, but sort of just below that. So this one might be just a little bit older. It has honestly been such a long time since I've been able to age hyena cubs properly. I would very much like all of your help, because I know there's a few of you who watch the show and are really, really keen on hyenas, and I've actually got quite good at aging cubs. So I think I'm just going to have a stab at it, but I mean, apologies if I'm incorrect. It tends to be quite difficult. We obviously use certain things to try and guess, but I would say this is obviously the oldest of the cubs, and I'd say it's probably close to around 6 months old. I find what guides tend to do is we underage things all the time. So whenever I give an estimate, I try and make it a little bit older, because I'm normally a few months off. So I think that one's maybe about 6 months, and then the one that we were initially looking at, maybe about 4 months old, and I'm starting to think that the other one that has slightly more black on it, you can't see it at the moment, it's just hiding towards the edges, is not too much younger than this one that we're looking at over there, so maybe closer to 3 months. But hashtag Wild Earth, let me know. I'm quite happy to correct my my estimates, but it would be quite nice to hear what you all think. It's obviously very difficult for you to sort of gauge in terms of their size. That's why I was hoping that the three of them would sit together again, and you could actually see that it was perfect. It would be nice if we knew exactly how old they were. Like I said, I did see some that weren't more than 2 weeks old, I reckon, in December. They were tiny, black in coloration, and still a little bit wobbly on the legs, and they literally just poked their heads out of the den, and Mom was there, and they didn't really come out too much. And I wanted to check pictures, but unfortunately I realized I actually didn't take any photos of that. We were filming it through a tiny gap, as it was too far away for me to reach with my camera, and I don't have that footage, unfortunately, so I can't see. But I've got such a lovely portrait of the other cub and the mother that has a tear in her left ear, quite low down, so I'll be able to hopefully put 3 nice pictures of this lot. But it's nice to see the Pridelands clan, and I'm happy that they are here. Look at this one, doesn't look very impressed with life. Absolutely miserable. Go back inside then if you're cold. We're quite lucky that they didn't get rained out, but I think these cluster leaves are actually providing a fair amount of shelter, because it is very wet on the outside of the den, but you can see it doesn't look too bad in there. And unfortunately that happens a lot with hyena dens, is that they will get flooded out quite easily. I'm starting to settle down. I think they were playing just before we arrived, and now they're a bit tired. They'll play with anything really. This morning the older cub had a stick which it was chewing on. If the adults bring back any bits of carcasses, they'll quite happily play with the bones. Normally what you see hyena cubs running around with is it's either a stick or it's a warthog tusk or a lower jaw of a warthog. It always seems to be a firm favourite. I suppose durable, hey? A long-lasting toy, because that's what you need for a hyena. Especially for these ones that are born bearing teeth. Very tough creatures, they really are. Yes, I can see you want to go inside. You can go in there. I'd love to be able to see how deep this tunnel network is. Maybe they might return to the den if it does flood. However, otherwise hyenas are very intelligent creatures. They might just realize that it's not a good den site. So they've been using this den though since December, maybe even a bit before, maybe even they'd scouted it out in late November already. I have definitely spoken about it, and yeah, I mean, this is actually one of the better den sites. The one that they used to have where we saw so many hyena cubs was down Battalier Road, not too far away from here actually. I reckon if one of the adults had to run from this den to the old den site, it'd probably be about 500 to 800 meters. I actually don't think it's that far away at all, straight through the bush. Obviously if we take it on the road, it's gonna be a little bit longer, but they seem to just like this area. So from here all the way to HQ, there are quite a few dens that they have used in the past as well. Normally big termite mounds like this one that they've sort of dug out. Definitely warthogs have been living in here. It'll be perfect habitat for them too. Are you going to jump? Have you got a burst of energy? Oh, careful. Slippery when wet. Look at it. Who tried to trip me? What happened there? Not very impressed now either. It's just funny how some hyenas just are so excited with life, and then others that one looks like it feels very sorry for itself. Just having a quick sniff around. It's very fluffy. I think they are a little bit on the chilly side. Maybe they did get a bit damp. They would definitely come out. They wouldn't want to stay in those burrows if water was just pouring straight down into the holes of the ground. They'll be much happier perched on top of the mound as they are now. We're going to sit here for a little bit longer and spend some time with the Pridelands clan. It's been ages since I've been able to spend this much time with the hyenas, so I'm thrilled. But off we go to Ngala, and they're on a bit of a bumble, I'm sure, and hopefully they're going to find some lions or leopards for you soon.
Welcome back to And Beyond Ngala. So I've actually got quite an unusual bird for the area here. It's called a black stork. And it's quite an uncommon resident, or actually usually nomadic, in South Africa. And I think this is the first time I've actually seen a black stork at And Beyond Ngala. They have been recorded here before, but I think with the increase of rain and a lot of puddles around, we've got a lot more stork species coming in. And at the moment, it looks like it's almost getting ready to roost for the night. It's having a bit of a groom. There you can see it preening with that long red beak. And it's quite an unusual stork because it's a lot smaller than the others. It's only going to weigh around 3 kilograms. So they are fairly small. And I think the reason why this stork is here is because there's been a massive increase in things like frogs and tadpoles. And a lot of the smaller animals like nesting birds, even small reptiles. You can actually see the wind is quite strong up there. The feathers are blowing in that wind. And so I'm sure by preening like that, it might even be trying to dry off a bit because there has been a small gap in the rain now. Amazing how it can turn its neck so far backwards to get underneath the wings. Have a look at that. Unbelievable. You can actually see what it's doing is it's using its beak, opening it really, really fast, opening and closing, and moving its way through the feathers so that it can give attention to each individual feather to make sure each one dries and is coated in an oil that would help keep the condition of the feathers more waterproof. So normally we find these actually in pairs rather than alone as well, which is also a bit unusual. But maybe it was blown a bit off course with the strong wind. You can hear the Birchall starling calling as well. Quite a beautiful stork, different as well in the fact that it has a very red beak and can have red legs, where a lot of the others would have, oh wow, it just got a leaf out of its feathers, it flew off in the wind. A lot of the other ones would have yellow or grey and more orange legs. So interestingly enough, when it's not wet, this stork actually has a lot more metallic-y colors in it. So it would be a metallic green, metallic purple. And it is a beautiful silhouette up there at the moment, I have to agree. It is quite a sight to see it with that dramatic storm silhouetting it in the background. I would love to see one of these storks in daylight when it's actually sunny, because they really do have an array of different colors that you would normally see, and majority of them is actually not black. It's actually green. And then it's got a tinge of blue and purple on the wings. Oh my goodness, look at it bending its neck backwards like that. It's actually twisting it. Got a bit of a fright when the starling flew over it. So for any bird species, this preening process where you're cleaning all the feathers, recoating them in an oil, a preening oil, it's a really, really important process that every bird would probably do every single day, just to make sure that it's suitable to fly, the feathers are well coated, it's as waterproof as it can be, but also that they're getting all of those parasites and pests out. There's bird flies that are actually, they look a bit more like spiders that would get in between the feathers. And there's a whole lot of other pests that would try and live off of the feathers or underneath the feathers on the skin. moving down its back now towards the tail. I would actually love to see this bird in flight as well. It must have quite an impressive wingspan. It only measures just over 1 meter tall, so it's not nearly as tall as some of the other storks. Oh, losing its balance. It's actually just stood on quite a wobbly branch there. So the full color of it is actually quite different. So I'm going to hold the book up for you, and we can try and show you the colors of what it actually looks like. So this is it here, and it's actually got this very beautiful metallic green, and then just on the wing it's got the stripe of blue, a stripe of purple, and then more green going down to the back. So the black color is actually only evident mostly at night, or when it's a juvenile. It's got the grayish black color, and then in flight a bit underneath the wing, but it's got a very red beak, a little red patch around the eye, and then red all the way down the legs. And the most common thing that it is confused with is this abdomen stalk, but this is more purple. It's got the gray on the beak and the legs, and the blue around the eye, and it's also a little bit smaller. So they're very, very similar, and they can be quite confusing, especially in the dark light like this. But I would absolutely love to see it in the sunlight, to actually see all of those metallic colors. What a stunning bird. I don't know if any of you have ever seen any of the other nice big storks. If you have any favorites, my absolute favorite is a saddle-billed stork. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the stork right at the top of this tree. Looks like it's starting to settle. And speaking of things right at the top of trees, I'm going to send you over to some giraffes, which would normally be reaching up there.
So I think this is our first giraffe for today, for this afternoon's safari. So a nice big male giraffe, and he's busy stripping as many leaves as he can off one little camel thorn, and the taller tree of the two is a shepherd's tree, or the boskia. But just look at how he just makes, with his tongue and his lips, nifty work of all those leaves. Earlier he didn't get what he wanted, so he just knocked it with his head so that it would break, and then he carried on eating it. So he's mostly feeding on the boskia, the shepherd's tree, which does have nice leaves. They'll feed on the flowers, they'll even feed on the fruit of the boskia tree. Much easier when it doesn't have a lot of thorns on it. So the boskia's got none. So hence the reason why he can just wrap his lips around it and just pluck upwards, and all the leaves come off. Apparently the commentary is saying, so soothing to watch giraffe. Soothing for everybody other than the poor boskia tree. And there he walks off. Not quite into the sunset, he's heading south, but the sunset in the west is starting to show a few more colours, a few more sort of oranges and pinks on the horizon there. So I think we're in for another good one. Depends on how much cloud is on the horizon, though. The other night we thought we were going to have a good one, and it just ended up being just clouds and no sunset. Shauna Bush Baby is asking the question, how far do giraffe roam while they're grazing? When they're feeding, because they're feeding on leaves, they're sort of browsing. Giraffe don't have a set territory, so they come and go as they please, and they move quite vast areas. We find giraffe all over Tswalu, and even the same giraffe that you can recognize across large distances. So they don't have necessarily a size area that they stick to. They just move to wherever they find food. So you'll probably find within a reserve they'll have some kind of a seasonal movement, or they'll know what plants they prefer and where they are on a reserve at a certain time of the year, and they'll focus their time and activity in that region. So don't necessarily have a set territory for giraffe. They just have a vast area where they move. We've seen one bull giraffe that had a really tatty ear. It was sort of torn, and a very recognizable giraffe. The same as we had a giraffe the other day that he had half-size horns. He's also recognizable, and we find him all over different places of the reserve. So they move constantly, finding food, finding other giraffe, and that will dictate as to whether they stay or go. But we sort of talk grazers and browsers. Browsers eating leaves, which is what the giraffe like, and grazers just eating the grass. So we'll head on and see if we can find either browsers or grazers. The kudu that we saw earlier would also be a browser. We're going to send you across to Ngala.
Listen. Welcome back to Anbion and Ngala. So I'm sitting with one of these sub-adults, possibly from the Birmingham Pride. And it's funny how these things work out. She was walking down the road as I was leaving that stalk, and if I hadn't have spent time with that stalk, we would have completely missed her. And she's calling and calling. I think she's looking for the rest of the pride. And I thought I heard a reply just now. She's not quite doing a full-blown roar. She's almost doing a half roar. And that could be because she's on her own, and as a sub-adult, she might feel a bit nervous. And I think most likely with the rain, the scent of the other lions has been washed away a bit. So she's trying really hard to find them. Isn't she beautiful? She almost looks like she doesn't know what to do. Well, she is actually facing the direction where I thought I heard a reply coming from. And I'm very, very close to our eastern boundary at the moment to Auburn Camp. And I think she's one of the sub-adults that was with the group that left the pride, including the white female. So she's actually now walking straight towards our eastern boundary. So I'm going to keep up with her on this road. How lucky that she's actually on the road and I don't need to try and off-road to keep up with her with this wet weather. So I'm just going to keep giving her a little bit of distance as she's walking because she is a sub-adult on her own. I want her to feel as comfortable as possible. She's still calling. Some impalas that have now started calling. So I'm going to follow her. Hopefully she leads us to a few other lions in the pride. What an exciting way to start off my evening.
When on safari, there's nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Sometimes love wants to make you sing. And sometimes love wants to make you bow and fan your wings to your bow. For the southern yellow-billed hornbill, these are signs that love is in the air. These birds are destined for a season of monogamy at least. Breeding pairs are in it for the survival of their chicks. But before love commences, the male needs to woo his valentine with food in the form of nuptial gifts.
I'm Nikki here at Ambient Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
Guys, have a look at what we've got. This is better than my birthday. Look at that. This is the first time that I ever see cubs this small. This is so special. This has officially just become my best sighting of all times.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
My favorite animal is a leopard, purely because I just think they are just the epitome of feline grace and power, and the way they can move about in any environment and remain hidden until they want to be seen, I just find incredibly intoxicating, and they're amazingly beautiful.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
Welcome back to Ambient Ngala. So we've just switched over to infrared as the light is dropping. And I'm still following this lioness. She's still calling. And we are headed straight towards our eastern boundary of Ambient Ngala. I'm so excited to see if we get to bump into the other lions that she's calling. And every few steps she keeps stopping and roaring. She definitely seems like she's a little bit lost. For a lion to call like this consistently while it's walking, it's usually because she's trying to find the rest of the pride. And so she's advertising as much as she can where she is. It is actually starting to drizzle a little bit again. So hopefully she leads us to some lions before the rain. Arabella, you're 8 years old and you want to know if lions have different roaring sounds. They absolutely do. So there's this contact roar that they're doing. There's a much louder and longer roar that the males do to advertise their territory. There's also soft contact calling that lionesses would do to call their cubs, and growling. So there's a lot of different sounds, and it does take a little bit of time to get used to which one is which. But contact calling like this is like a roaring call where she's trying to call the rest of the pride. It's not quite as loud as a male lion's roar, which actually, if you're close enough, the whole vehicle feels like it's shaking and your insides feel like they're shaking. One of the best feelings in the world. Oh, I can hear a hyena calling now. I think she can hear the hyena as well. So there's a hyena calling from kind of her front left. Unbelievable. That sound. This is incredible. To hear any sound from a lion is just, almost feels like it changes your life a little bit. So to hear it and be able to follow her like this is just unbelievable. With the current pride dynamics that are going on with the Birmingham Pride, it's actually quite tough to say which lions are where, how they've split up. We know that some of the sub-adults left on their own, but we also know she's actually gone around to avoid the water. We also know that the white male has now been seen on his own, injured, so maybe he had a fight with some other lions. And so it's possible that even the sub-adult group, which she might belong to, have actually split up. So at the moment, especially with all the rain and the rivers not being crossable, it's quite tough for us to pinpoint where all of the lions are. Yeah, she's definitely looking for the pride. Might be quite a nervous feeling for her, knowing that she's on her own, she's still young, looking for the rest of the pride, especially in weather like this. There's others replying. I can hear a very faint call in the distance. Some actually from behind me, and there's another one replying from my front right. She's actually just started running. She can hear them. Let's see if we can keep up. Ooh, we've had a lot of rain. Jerry, yes, the pride would also be looking for her, and so that's why when they can hear her, they're responding. I think that's why she suddenly got a move on, because she actually heard it coming from close by. So she's literally on our eastern boundary at the moment. Alpen Camp is right behind her. Still calling. Right, let's see if we can keep up again. So this is kind of make or break for her, because she can either go one way or the other. But she needs to decide which way she's going. And if she goes straight over, we can't follow her. Looks like she has come towards my left. Yes, there she is. I wonder if the sound of the rest of the pride is kind of giving her something to go towards. That's why she's speeding up. Yeah, she's going to go straight through over our eastern boundary. Still calling. So she's actually going, she's using the roads this evening to her advantage. She's going straight down that road. And that's where I heard some of the calling coming from. So this is the last place that the sub-adults were seen together. It's just on the other side of these bushes. The calls are actually getting louder. Oh my goodness. Incredible, and just like that, she's out of sight. Unbelievable. How fantastic to be able to follow her for so long and hear her calling consistently. I still want to spend a few minutes here though and just listen to hear if we can hear any other lions calling, because the way that she's going makes me think that the lions might be somewhere close to the river, which is on my left. What a special sighting actually to be able to follow a young lioness that's calling so consistently and hearing other lions replying. It's almost like you're seeing all the dynamics happen and hearing them and putting it together in your head. So let's just keep listening. The frogs are very loud right now. I can still hear her calling. She sounds like she is moving further away, kind of to my northeast, front left. And the call that I heard replying was actually coming a little bit from my right, and there was another one coming from the opposite direction. So it's getting fainter and fainter as she moves away. Well, that one was quite loud. But what I'm really interested in is hearing if the other lions are calling back. It would be very interesting as well to see if anything else might follow, because that sound of her roaring is going to attract things like hyenas, maybe even other lions from outside the Birmingham Pride. The frogs are so loud that I'm actually struggling to hear anything else. So the Birmingham Pride in particular is one of my favorite prides to follow, because their dynamics at the moment especially are so different to what we're used to. We're used to them all as one big pride of 25. And now all of a sudden, everybody's splitting up. So it's like we're having to relearn these dynamics. I can still hear her faintly in the distance, but I don't think over the frogs you'll hear her. So I think what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to take a slow drive up this eastern boundary. You never know, maybe they've come back towards the road, but I'm going to send you over to Tswalu in the meantime, and cross your fingers that I'll find the rest of the pride for you tonight.
So we do hope that Tess finds that lioness. It sounds like hopefully the lioness also finds the pride. We have that to reveal to you so far. I'm going to stop on the top of the dune and just show you yet another spectacular Kalahari scene. So we've probably got about another, I wouldn't say 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes at most, before the sun goes down. So all I'm hearing is wattled starlings. They're all about to go to bed. They're making a large noise as a big colony. Apparently, some of the comments, Tswalu never disappoints with the view. We're not, winter season we don't have as much cloud cover, so the sunsets don't give us as many beautiful colors. They're still beautiful sunsets, but they don't get these beautiful pinks and purples and nice in there. It's just gonna peep behind the go behind the cloud. To try and get an animal on top of a dune in a silhouette is often a challenge. There's certain animals that their profile is just perfect against that. I sort of think off the top of my head a giraffe, a kudu, probably a sable. They've got really, really nice profiles for a silhouette shot against the dunes. Lover is asking, what is the most unusual animal or bird that I've ever come across? At Tswalu, I'd say an animal that we don't see very regularly that's quite strange is a polecat, which an alternative name for it is a zorilla. If you think about a mongoose, it's kind of that size, long black and white stripes. Let me see if I can show you in the mammals book. It's always easier to actually show you because descriptions aren't always the best. But yeah, polecat. So a polecat also is very difficult for us to show you at night because they do tend to move around quite late at night. So maybe in the winter, come the winter, we might be lucky enough to show you one, but they also generally tend to dash off pretty quickly. So there, no, that's a striped weasel. Next one, there we go. So almost a small version of a skunk. So this one over here. And I just remember many, many years ago on my very first assessment drive, we'd done all of our training. And then we'd gone to the lodge and we'd been at the lodge for a couple of months shadowing all the other guides and sort of learning the property. And then it was time for us to go and take our own game drive. And we generally had management on the vehicle so that they could say, okay, well, this person is ready to take out our guests. And it was my assessment drive, the very first one I'd ever done. And it was in the Eastern Cape. And this little black and white creature ran across the road. And I looked at it, and thank goodness everyone else on the vehicle was as excited because the first person said, "It's a polecat!" And I thought, whew, because I didn't know what it was. So I quickly sort of opened up the mammals book and found the polecat. And while they were so busy watching it, I was reading out of the book as to how to chat about the polecat. So it's one of the little creatures that we don't see regularly, but one that I certainly will never forget. And they do make a stinking smell just like a skunk. If they are bothered, they will send out a foul-smelling liquid and chase an animal away. And there is actually even a very interesting interaction that one or two guides have seen here that I have yet to see, that I'm waiting to see, is an interaction between a Cape fox and a polecat. And the last guide a couple of weeks ago, or about more than a month or so ago, saw the interaction between a fox and the polecat. And the polecat was actually rubbing its anal gland up and down the fox. And the fox was just sitting there, not bothered by it at all. And they have noticed before that the polecats will follow the Cape fox feeding. So, you know, it's a freak occurrence. A couple of people have seen it, but it hasn't even been studied. Nobody knows who, how, what, why, for what purpose. But I know for myself that's definitely a sighting that I would like to see. And then that will become the most unique sighting I've ever seen if I'm lucky enough to see that. Just beautiful. So we're going to send you across to Tess. She's possibly got a lion update for you.
Welcome back to And Beyond Ngala. So I am currently driving on our eastern boundary and I am checking very slowly for any other predators that might be around, whether it's a hyena that's maybe followed the lions or maybe part of the pride. And it is incredibly wet. There's a lot of water around. So it's definitely been an interesting afternoon slipping on the roads. So that lioness actually continued to call for quite a while. And so I'm thinking she still has not found the pride, but they were moving further east. They were actually moving away from the property. How amazing would it be to come around the corner and have a Birmingham pride in front of me? So I'm actually scanning in the trees as well for smaller things like genets, bush babies, even leopards or carcasses, because I don't want to miss a thing. The nightlife is always so fascinating because it feels so different to daytime. Even the environment looks different. Nicanova, members of the Birmingham Breakaway Pride may be a threat to that sub-adult Birmingham lioness if they did come across her. Although, I mean, it's actually quite tough to say because sometimes they might actually accept a lioness because they do still share the same genes, they still share commonalities, but most likely lions that come across her would be a threat. And so she has to be super careful which lions she bumps into. Even a big clan of hyenas would be able to take her on, although it would take about 4 or 5 hyenas to take her on at the moment. I need to do a little bit more arm day in the gym. My arms are getting tired. Oh my goodness. I've actually been wondering where the breakaway pride of 14 is, because they were last seen close to the eastern boundary as well. Well, hopefully I get to find them. The river's now just on my right-hand side. So I'm going to cross my fingers and my toes and send you over to Tswalu. Hopefully when you come back to me, I might have some lions.
also crossing fingers and toes for you, for hoping that you can find that lion again before we finish drive. But this is a nice little herd of springbok. So they'd be on the edge now. They'd be not edgy themselves, but they'd be on the edge of basically finishing up eating for the day and then looking for a place where they're going to lie down. But they will tend to lie down in an open clearing because that way they do have better visibility. They don't necessarily have nocturnal vision, but they'll lie down in an open area and hope that they will have better visual. He's got a very thin little tail. Very, very thin little tail. So that white area on the rump of the springbok is what flares open when they do their pronking. So bouncing up and down with the 4 stiffened legs, and they just literally go up and down, and then that white hair is shown. So when they're just relaxed and feeding like that, you don't necessarily see that flare of hair. That's a female. You can see thin little horns, even thin little legs. So they are mixed feeders. So she's busy eating on the, she's browsing, and some of the others were grazing. Nikanova is asking the question, what animal species has a certain behavior that shows upcoming weather? I often say in the mornings, if you see wildebeest in particular, by 8 o'clock in the morning in the Kalahari, under a tree, in the shade, lying down already, we know we're in for a scorcher of a day. So that can be showing you that there's really, really hot weather coming. I can't say that animals would sort of sense. Maybe they try and find some sort of shelter if they know, based on the sort of weather pressure changes, the atmospheric pressure, whether there's going to be rain coming or not, whether they'd move to different areas to stay out of the rain. But I certainly do know that in areas where it's about to flood, the hippos and the crocodiles start moving out of a river, and even elephants start moving to higher ground. So they sense something in the changes of the atmospheric pressure, or something that they're sort of perceiving from the environment that suggests that there's heavy rains coming. I think they're far more in tune with what's going on and what's pending in their environment than we're aware of, because they have recorded elephants making their way to higher ground when there's going to be heavy rains and floods. And I've seen tortoises. When you start seeing lots of tortoises moving, you also know that there's a potential for heavy rain. In the background, so they've all gone behind that bush now. The whole herd of springbok is level with that bush. I'm hearing the little barking geckos, the little kuk. They ones that will now, the fact that the sun is going down and it's becoming nocturnal, they're now starting to come out and call. They typically nocturnal in calls, so they're waiting. There's lots of animals that the length of day and night and the time of the day is the is the cue to them that it's either bedtime or waking up time. So another female there. I think we're going to just pop to the top of the dune because I think we're going to catch the last sort of rays of the sunset. We don't want to miss the sunset, and it definitely is happening now. So we're nearly at the top of the dune. We'll get up to the top of the dune and then maybe see what's left of a beautiful Kalahari sunset. We're nearly there. Nearly there for the sunset picture. The colours are just spectacular. The sort of pinks, purples. Oh. And the sun's gone. Backwards or forwards? There we go. So literally, boom. In the time we were watching the springbuck, the sun has dropped below the horizon. There's the last few rays of the day. Tree silhouette's quite good. I mean, it's not an animal. We were hoping to find a nice mammal as a tree silhouette, but that's a grey camel thorn that's making a very pretty silhouette. So we're going to just absorb this for a little while. We're going to send you across to Tess.
Welcome back to Anbion Ngala. That sounds like a beautiful sunset at Tswalu with Deirdre. So I haven't found any lions yet, but I have found the rain. So we might have to wipe the lens off a little bit every now and then. So if you do see a strange thing across the screen, that's why. And I am still trying to compete with the frogs to hear the sound of the lions. At the moment it is incredibly wet, but it is quite beautiful out actually. There's a lot of sounds that are coming up louder and louder. I actually saw a bullfrog just now, which I haven't seen in a very long time. I hear them, but you don't see them often. So what I'm actually looking for is the reflection of hopefully lion's eyes. They'll come straight back at me with my spotlight. Laura, yes, it has been known of some lions to completely lose the pride and spend the rest of their time on their own. They might still survive on their own. Some lions are better than others at hunting, but unfortunately, especially older lionesses and older males would not cope so well with that because they start to slow down, and so they would need the pride to help them hunt. But yes, there have been cases of lionesses and lions getting lost and never finding their way back, or even getting lost when they found their way back, they get kicked out. So it has happened, unfortunately for those lions, but that is the way of the bush. You know, these things have to happen every now and then to keep the genetics as good as possible. So I'm now at one of the large pan systems that actually almost crosses over the road on both sides. So I'm definitely going to stop here for a minute and just listen, but also just give it a quick shine with the spotlight. Unbelievable how loud it is. I can actually see a lot of fireflies. Sound is incredibly loud, so there's actually a lot of fireflies that have been kind of lighting up around me. I don't know if it's... Owen, can we even get those? I don't know if we'll be able to see the fireflies. There's a hyena. It's busy calling from in front of me. There's actually... There's quite a few fireflies that are kind of zooming over. I'm really hoping to get to see some. It's beautiful. I can actually just see them popping up all over. I can hear lions coming from my right. The frogs are so loud though that I don't know if you'll be able to hear the lions. I can definitely hear lions in the distance. It sounds like fairly far away. But it sounds like it's coming more from the area where that lioness and her 3 little cubs were in the last 2 days. Unbelievable, the sound is insane. I think what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to start going back down the road and actually see if I can take a right and hopefully get closer to where those lions are calling from. Sounds like it might be part of the pride. Let's have a look. The frogs are so loud I can barely hear myself talking. Just like that, it's gone. Amazing. Just at that pan system, it is so, so loud. And it's like a hive of activity for all the frogs there because it's such a nice big pan system. It's got a bit of marsh in it. It's got some water lilies and it's got thickets on the outside and then also bare patches or open patches of water. So it's pretty much an oasis for all the different species. So I'm actually very close to where I first saw that lioness now. She was just further up this road. Luckily the rain has stopped, so I'm going to keep going. And I'm really hoping I get to see the Birminghams tonight.
Hi, I'm Sue. I'm from South Africa and I'm the incredibly lucky winner of the Tswalu competition. Tswalu has so much to offer, but we're really looking forward to the game viewing options as going out with a personal guide who has so much knowledge will just be exceptional. Motsi Lodge looks absolutely amazing, and we're so looking forward to spending time there. It really is out of this world. I only registered as an explorer towards the end of January, so when the email arrived stating that I was the winner, it took me totally by surprise. I'd just like to thank Wild Earth and Tswalu for this most incredible prize. It really is a dream come true.
Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Riverbeds are a great way to find water and look for places where elephant have excavated hollows. You can then dig into the sand, and after a couple of feet you should find damp sand, which then can be squeezed out or siphoned off for water. And with water being one of our scarcest resources, it is a good idea to conserve water where and how you can.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and Beyond Pinde Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Look at this, the little one is up and about. Certainly hasn't had enough milk at this age. No amount of milk is enough. Oh, Corky. Too sweet. Oh, look at this. That is stunning.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
So, as the sun sets, so it's going to set on my time with Safari Live at the moment, don't panic. I want to introduce Yuan to you, who is going to take over Safari Live from tomorrow as a new face on Tswalu. Yuan's been... He grew up in the Kalahari, right?
That's it, yeah.
So grew up on a farm, not too far away from here, and he's guided in the Kalahari for more than 7 years. So he's six and a half years probably, or 6 years ahead of me in Kalahari knowledge. So I'm handing you over very confidently to somebody that I know is going to show you some amazing things. One thing I do know about Yuan is that his favorite animal, and some of you viewers are going to love this, is what, Yuan?
Lycaon pictus, which is the African wild dog.
So I did say Morgan needs a seatbelt because the dogs traverse vast areas on this property, but they are an absolute favorite of his, and I know that his passion will come through, and you will definitely see. Well, I say definitely, but we can never guarantee on these things. I say I'm pretty sure that Yuan will be able to show you those dogs, and I'm hoping you're excited to give this a bash.
It'll be awesome. I think it'll be really, really cool. I mean, the Kalahari is such a special place, and it's a place where magic and wonders comes together. So there's a lot more to see, and there's a lot more to learn, and I truly think it'll be really special.
Awesome. I do think that you're going to show them some amazing things. So be kind, ask nice questions, please, all of you. Just once again, thank you for joining us on our live safaris. You can join us again tomorrow morning on the Sunrise Safari. That's going to start at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 a.m. Central African time. I just got a very funny smile out of Morgan because I nearly messed it up. I've said p.m. a few times, but it's a.m. So, thank you very, very much for joining us as we just appreciate that sunset.